Dr. Minho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he carefully brushed dirt away from the strange metal object buried deep in the ground. He had been digging on this planet for 3 months now, and this was the most interesting thing he had found. The planet was called Kepler-44, to be, and it was supposed to be empty of any intelligent life. Minho was not human. He had 4 arms and compound eyes that could see many colors humans could not. His species, the Altarians, were known throughout. The galaxy is the best at finding old things buried in the ground. That is why the Galactic Council had sent him here. The metal in front of him was unlike anything he had ever seen. It was smooth and dark, but it seemed to glow with a soft light from the inside. When he touched it with his scanner, the numbers on his screen went crazy. The metal was old, very, very old. Older than any civilization anyone knew about. This cannot be right, Minho said to himself. According to his instruments, this metal was over 4 million years old, but that was impossible. The oldest known civilization in the galaxy was only 2 million years old. His assistant, Yunji, swam over in her water suit. She was from a planet covered in oceans, and her people looked like tall, thin fish with hands. They were very smart and good at solving puzzles. Dr. Minho, she said, her voice bubbling through the water in her suit. You need to see these readings. The genetic scanner is showing something very strange. Minho looked at her scanner. There were traces of DNA in the metal, tiny pieces of genetic material that had somehow survived for millions of years. This meant that whoever built this thing had been alive, not machines. Run the DNA through the database, Minho told her. Let us see what species built this. While Yunji worked on her computer, Minho continued to study the metal object. It was clearly part of something much larger. The shape suggested it was a piece of a building, or maybe a machine, but the technology was far beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could make. The metal seemed to repair itself as he watched. Small scratches he had accidentally made with his tools were slowly disappearing. The material was somehow alive, or at least active, after all these millions of years. Dr. Yunji called out, and her voice sounded worried. The computer has found a match for the DNA. Minho hurried over to look at her screen. What he saw made him very confused. The DNA matched a species in the galactic database, but it was listed as Category 5, Primitive Developing Species. There must be an error, Minho said. Run it again. But the computer gave the same result. The DNA belonged to a species called humans from a small planet called Earth, in something called the Sol System. Minho had heard of humans before. They were new to the galaxy, only discovered about 50 years ago. The Galactic Council treated them like children, giving them simple jobs and not allowing them to have advanced technology. Humans were supposed to be barely capable of space travel. They had only recently learned to leave their own planet. The idea that they could have built something this advanced millions of years ago was ridiculous. Check the database again, Minho ordered. Look up everything about these humans. As Yunji searched through the galactic records, Minho stared at the ancient metal. If this really was built by humans, then everything the galaxy believed about them was wrong. Very wrong. The records showed that humans were bipedal mammals, with only 2 arms and simple eyes. They lived short lives and had no special abilities. Their planet was considered a backwater world with nothing important on it. The Galactic Council allowed them to join galactic society only because they felt sorry for them. But if humans had really built this technology millions of years ago, then they were not primitive at all. They were the most advanced species the galaxy had ever known. Minho made a decision that would change everything. Instead of reporting his findings to the Galactic Council right away, he decided to dig deeper. If there was one piece of ancient human technology here, there might be more. Over the next few days, Minho and Yunji found more pieces of the same strange metal. They were all parts of what seemed to be a huge complex of buildings. The technology was so advanced that Minho could not even guess what most of it was supposed to do. Every piece they tested showed the same human DNA markers. There was no doubt anymore. Millions of years ago, humans had built cities on this planet with technology that made current galactic civilization look like children playing with toys. The question that kept Minho awake at night was simple but terrifying. If humans had once been so powerful, what had happened to them? How had the masters of the galaxy been reduced to living on just one small planet, treated like primitives by species who were clearly far less advanced than their ancestors? And most frightening of all, did the humans of today know about their incredible past, or had they forgotten everything about who they really were? Commander Jae-sung walked slowly into the great hall where the Galactic Council met. His reptilian skin was covered in nervous sweat, and his tail twitched behind him as he carried the reports that would shock the entire galaxy. As head of archaeological security, it was his job to investigate Minho's discovery. What he had found in the past 2 months made him wish he had never taken this job. The hall was filled with representatives from dozens of different species. There was Counselor Hyjin, whose crystal body rang like bells when she was upset. Next to her sat Representative Kyung Min, a giant insect whose clicking sounds filled the air when he was nervous. They were all about to learn something that would change their understanding of everything. Council members, Jae-sung began, his voice shaking slightly. What I am about to tell you will be hard to believe. We have found proof that everything we know about galactic history is wrong. He activated the holographic display in the center of the room. Images appeared showing ancient ruins from 12 different planets across the galaxy. All of them showed the same impossible technology that Minho had found. These structures exist on worlds throughout our galaxy, Jae-sung continued. They are all millions of years old, and they all contain the same genetic markers. Human genetic markers. The room erupted in noise. Council members spoke in dozens of different languages, all expressing shock and disbelief. Counselor Hyjin's crystal body rang so loudly that others had to cover their ears. Impossible. Representative Kyungmin clicked angrily. Humans are barely more advanced than animals. They have been in space for less than 100 years. Jae-sung waited for the noise to die down before continuing. That is what we all believed, but the evidence says otherwise. Dr. Yoonji has been studying the technology we found. Would you like to hear her report? Yoonji swam forward in her water suit, her fish-like body moving gracefully through the liquid that kept her alive. She had always been quiet and careful with her words, but today she spoke with confidence. Council members, I have spent 2 months analyzing human technology from the ancient sites. What I found is shocking. Our entire galactic civilization is built on human inventions that we never understood. She activated more holograms showing the insides of spaceships, weapons, and computers used by all the major galactic powers, the power cores and vegan hierarchy warships. They are human technology, the defensive shields that protect Centauri worlds. Human technology, the faster-than-light communication systems we all use. Also human technology. The room fell silent. Every species represented in the council had built their power on technology they claimed to have invented themselves. You are saying, Counselor Hyjin's crystal voice rang out slowly, that we are all using human inventions. Not just using them, Yoonji replied. We have been reverse engineering human technology for over 1 million years. Every advancement our civilizations have made has been based on trying to copy human designs that we found but could never fully understand. Representative Kyungmin's mandibles clicked rapidly. But humans are primitive. We found them living on one small planet, with simple technology. That is the mystery, Jae-sung said. Somehow, the most advanced species the galaxy has ever known was reduced to living on just one world. The humans we know today are the descendants of beings who once built cities among the stars. Dr. Minho, who had been quiet until now, stepped forward. His forearms gestured at the holograms around them, I have been to 17 different planets in the past month, he said. On every world where we found advanced technology, I found the same thing. Human DNA markers embedded in quantum-locked security systems. Genetic authentication codes that only respond to human biology. The implications were staggering. It meant that much of the technology that galactic civilizations depended on could potentially be controlled by humans if they ever learned how to access it. There is more, Yonji added quietly. The genetic locks are not just on the ancient technology. They are also embedded in the technology we use today. Technology we built by copying the ancient human designs. A chill went through the council chamber. If humans ever discovered their true heritage, they could potentially take control of systems across the galaxy. What happened to them? Asked a small furry representative from the Outer Rim. How did such a powerful species end up forgotten on one planet? We do not know, Jae-sung admitted. But recent reports from our monitoring stations around Earth suggest something troubling. Human archaeologists have been studying their own planet's ancient monuments with new interest. They are asking questions about structures we always assumed were simple, primitive buildings. The council members looked at each other with growing fear. The humans they had treated as junior partners for decades were beginning to investigate their own past. What if they remember? Counselor Hyjin asked, her crystal body vibrating with worry. What if they discover who they really are? No one in the chamber had an answer to that terrifying question. The galaxy had spent 1,000,000 years building civilizations on the bones of human technology, never suspecting that the creators might one day return to reclaim what was theirs. Dr. Sujin stood in the cold morning air outside the Great Pyramid in Egypt, holding a scanner that had been given to her by alien visitors 5 years ago. She was one of the few human scientists allowed to use advanced galactic technology, though the aliens always watched her carefully when she did. The news from the Galactic Council had reached Earth 3 days ago. At first, nobody believed it. How could humans have once ruled the galaxy? They had only learned to travel to other planets in the last century. But Sujin had always felt that something was wrong with the official story. Why did ancient human monuments around the world seem to be made with technology that modern humans could not understand? Why did the aliens seem nervous whenever humans asked too many questions about these old buildings? Are you sure about this? Asked her research partner, Dr. Dongwu. He was holding another scanner and looking worried. If the aliens find out we are testing their equipment on the pyramid without permission, we could get in serious trouble. Sujin pressed her hand against the smooth stone of the pyramid. The genetic markers they found in space, they match human DNA. If our ancestors really built advanced technology, maybe some of it is still here on Earth. Nothing happened for a few seconds. Then, deep inside the pyramid, something began to hum. The sound was very low. So low that they felt it in their bones, rather than heard it with their ears. The stones of the pyramid began to glow with a soft blue light that seemed to come from inside the rock itself. Sujin Dongwu whispered, staring at his scanner. The energy readings. They are off the scale. There is a massive power source inside this pyramid, and it just activated. Around the world, similar things were happening. Professor Yunhai was at Stonehenge in England when the ancient stone circles suddenly came alive. The tall stones began to emit a high-pitched sound that made the air shimmer like heat waves. Her instruments showed that Stonehenge had become a powerful radio transmitter, sending signals deep into space. In Peru, Dr. Namsu was studying the ancient ruins of Machu Picchu when the entire mountaintop complex transformed before his eyes. Hidden panels slid open in the stone walls, revealing crystalline devices that pulsed with inner light. The ruins were not just old buildings, they were some kind of advanced technology, disguised as simple stone structures. Back in Egypt, Sujin watched in amazement as more systems activated inside the pyramid. Her scanner showed that the entire structure was actually a sophisticated machine, with energy flowing through channels carved into the stone blocks. It is responding to us, she said in wonder. The pyramid is scanning our DNA and recognizing us as the builders. The awakening was not limited to Earth. Throughout the galaxy, ancient structures on dozens of planets began to respond to the signals being broadcast from Earth's monuments. On worlds where humans had been living as colonists under alien supervision, defense systems suddenly activated, creating protective energy shields around human settlements. Captain Wu Jin was commanding one of humanity's 12 small spaceships when his instruments detected the first signals. He had always felt frustrated that aliens only allowed humans to build simple ships while keeping the advanced technology for themselves. Captain called his communications officer, Lieutenant Su Young. I am detecting massive energy signatures throughout the Sol system. Ancient satellites are powering up. Satellites we never knew existed. Wu Jin looked at his display screen in disbelief. Hidden throughout their solar system were technological devices that his instruments could barely detect, let alone understand. They had been sleeping for millions of years, but now they were waking up. On the alien monitoring station orbiting Earth, panic was spreading. The station's commander, a tall gray being called Vex-9, watched his screens with growing fear as human technology came online across the galaxy. Send an emergency message to the Galactic Council, he ordered his crew. Tell them the humans are activating systems we cannot control. Some of our surveillance equipment has been automatically shut down by human security protocols, but it was too late to stop what was happening. On 17 different worlds, ancient human defense networks were responding to Earth's signals. Weapon systems that had been hidden for millions of years were powering up, their targeting computers automatically identifying threats to human populations. Back on Earth, Dr. Sujin felt something strange happening in her mind. As she touched the activated pyramid, information began flowing into her thoughts, knowledge about technology and science that she had never learned but somehow understood. Dongwu, she said, her voice filled with wonder. I can see how it works. The pyramid, the stone circles, all of it. They are part of a network that spans the entire galaxy. Our ancestors built a communication and defense system that has been watching over us this whole time. Similar experiences were happening to humans across the planet. People who touched the activated monuments found themselves remembering things their ancestors had known. The genetic memory of humanity's true heritage was awakening after millions of years of sleep. The aliens who had treated humans as primitive newcomers were about to learn a terrifying truth. They had been living under the protection of sleeping giants, and those giants were finally waking up. The age of humanity's exile was ending. The real question was what would happen when Earth's children remembered how to reach for the stars. Fleet Admiral Taeyong stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching as alien surveillance stations around Earth went dark one by one. For 30 years, he had commanded humanity's small fleet of 12 ships, always knowing that alien observers were watching their every move. Now, those watchers were being systematically shut down by systems he was only beginning to understand. Admiral reported his communications officer, Lieutenant Su Young. We are receiving angry messages from 17 different alien governments. They are demanding that we shut down what they call our illegal weapon systems. Taeyong smiled for the first time in years. He had spent his entire career being told by aliens that humans were too primitive to be trusted with advanced technology. The same aliens had been using human-built technology all along without even knowing it. Tell them these are not weapons, he said calmly. Tell them these are security systems built by our ancestors to protect us. They have been sleeping for millions of years, but now they are awake. Around the galaxy, the awakening was accelerating at a pace that terrified the established powers. On the distant planet, where Dr. Minho had made his first discovery, the ancient ruins were no longer just ruins. They had transformed into a massive industrial complex that was manufacturing technology beyond anything the current galactic civilizations could understand. The vegan hierarchy, who had ruled the northern arm of the galaxy for over 500,000 years, discovered that their most powerful warships could no longer function properly. The human-built power cores that had made their fleet invincible were now operating under security protocols that only responded to human genetic codes. Commander Zeldak of the vegan fleet tried desperately to regain control of his flagship's weapons engineering. "Why are our systems not responding, sir?" came the panicked reply. "The power core is demanding genetic authorization. It will only accept commands from human DNA patterns." Similar problems were occurring throughout the galaxy. The Centauri Dominion's planetary defense networks had locked out their alien operators. The advanced communication systems that connected galactic civilization were now filtering messages, giving priority to human communications while delaying others. On Earth, Dr. Sujin was learning to interface with systems that her ancestors had built. The knowledge flowing into her mind was overwhelming but wonderful. She could see the true scope of what ancient humanity had accomplished: cities that floated in space, machines that could transform dead planets into gardens, and defensive networks that protected life throughout the galaxy. "The systems are not just defensive," she explained to a gathering of human leaders. "Our ancestors built them to nurture and protect all forms of life, but they made sure that only humans could control them, probably to prevent other species from using the technology for war." President Bora of the United Earth government listened carefully to these briefings. The weight of humanity's rediscovered heritage was enormous. With the ancient systems coming online, humans suddenly had more power than any species in galactic history. "What do the aliens want?" she asked her advisors. "They want us to shut everything down and go back to the way things were," replied her defense minister. "They are threatening to use military force if we do not comply." Biora looked out the window at the night sky, where human-built satellites that had been hidden for millions of years now glowed like new stars. "And what would happen if they attacked us?" Dr. Sujin answered quietly. "The defense networks would protect us. Our ancestors built safeguards that are beyond anything the current galactic powers possess. But Admiral, there would be a cost. If we are attacked, the systems might respond with force that could destroy entire fleets." In the emergency session of the Galactic Council, panic filled the Great Hall. Counselor Hygen's crystal body was ringing so loudly with stress that others had to move away from her. "They have shut down our surveillance of 47 different worlds," she announced. "Human colonies that we have been monitoring for decades are now protected by defensive shields we cannot penetrate." Representative Kyungmin's mandibles clicked frantically. "How long have these systems been watching us? How long have we been observed by sleeping human technology?" Dr. Yuenji, who had become the Council's expert on human systems, consulted her readings with growing dread. Based on the network integration patterns, the human systems have been cataloging our activities since we first achieved interstellar travel. They have detailed records of everything we have done for over 1,000,000 years. The terrifying truth was becoming clear to every species in the Council. They had not discovered and colonized the galaxy. They had been living in a house built by others, using tools they did not understand, under the observation of security systems that had been patiently watching and waiting. Admiral Taeyong received a direct communication from the Galactic Council, demanding that Earth shut down all activated systems immediately. His response was simple and final. "The systems you want us to shut down are not ours to control," he told them. "They belong to our ancestors, and they are protecting their children. If you wish to negotiate, you will do so as equals, not as our supervisors." For the first time in galactic history, the established powers faced a simple truth. The species they had treated as primitives were the rightful inheritors of the galaxy's greatest civilization. President Bora stood before the cameras in the United Earth Assembly, knowing that her words would be heard across the entire galaxy. Behind her, Holographic displays showed the true extent of ancient human civilization, thousands of worlds, with gleaming cities, massive structures that collected energy from stars, and technology that could create new planets from cosmic dust. To all the species of the galaxy, she began, her voice steady and calm. We want you to know that we hold no anger toward you. Our ancestors built these systems not to conquer, but to help life flourish throughout the stars. In the Great Hall of the Galactic Council, alien representatives watched the broadcast with a mixture of fear and amazement. They had spent weeks trying to understand how humans had hidden such incredible power for so long, only to learn that humans themselves had forgotten their own heritage until now. Dr. Sujin, who had become humanity's chief technology advisor, stood beside the president. The knowledge flowing through her mind was still overwhelming, but she was beginning to understand the true purpose of the ancient systems. The networks our ancestors built are not weapons of war, she explained to the galaxy. They are tools for healing. We have technology that can extend the lifespan of any species indefinitely, machines that can turn dead worlds into gardens, and energy systems that can power your civilizations without harming a single star. Admiral Taeyong watched the broadcast from his flagship, surrounded by a fleet that now numbered in the thousands. Automated shipyards throughout the galaxy had responded to human genetic codes, building new vessels with technology that made current galactic warships look like children's toys. But instead of using this incredible power to dominate, humanity was offering to share. The choice is yours, Captain Wujin announced to the assembled alien representatives. We can pretend that nothing has changed, that we are still the primitive species you discovered 50 years ago, or we can work together as equals, with humanity helping you understand the tools you have been using. Dr. Minho, the archaeologist who had started this whole revelation, stood up slowly in the council chamber. His forearms trembled as he spoke, representing not just himself, but the entire Galactic Archaeological Council. We would be honored to learn from our teachers, he said humbly. We have spent our entire civilization building on foundations we never understood. We would like to understand them now. Across the galaxy, the changes were already beginning. Human colonies that had lived under alien restrictions for decades found themselves free to build and explore as they wished. The defensive networks that had activated did not oppress other species. They simply ensured that humans would never again be reduced to a single world or treated as inferior beings. On Earth, ordinary people were discovering that they carried the genetic memory of their ancestors. Maria Santos, a construction worker from Mexico, found that she could understand and repair alien technology that had baffled galactic engineers for centuries. Kim Jong-soo, a farmer from Korea, discovered that he instinctively knew how to operate terraforming machines that could transform barren land into fertile soil. The ancient systems were not just returning power to humanity, they were awakening abilities that had been sleeping in human genetics for millions of years. Dr. Yunji, swimming in her water suit, approached President Bora after the broadcast. President, there is something you should know. The human systems are not just on the worlds we have discovered. My analysis suggests there are human-built networks on thousands of planets we have never even visited. Your ancestors spread across the entire galaxy. The implications were staggering. Humanity's true heritage was not just as the builders of galactic civilization, but as a species that had touched every corner of the known universe. Representative Kung Min, his insectoid features showing newfound respect, spoke for many alien species when he addressed the human delegation. What happened to you? How did such a mighty civilization end up on just one small world? President Bora looked at the ancient star maps that her people were beginning to remember. We do not know yet, but perhaps that is a mystery we can solve together. The systems our ancestors built suggest they faced some great threat or made some great sacrifice. Understanding what happened might help us prevent it from happening again. The galaxy was entering a new age. Species that had competed and fought for millions of years were now working together under humanity's gentle guidance. The technology that had been reverse-engineered and poorly understood for eons was finally being used as it was intended. But the greatest change was in humanity itself. No longer the junior partners, begging for acceptance. They had become the teachers and protectors they were always meant to be. The ancient networks ensured that no human colony would ever again be vulnerable, no human voice would be ignored, and no human achievement would be forgotten. As Admiral Taeyong looked out at the stars from his bridge, he felt the weight of responsibility that came with such incredible power. Humanity had the technology of gods, but they also had the wisdom that came from millennia of struggle and growth. The forgotten ancient race had returned, not as conquerors seeking revenge, but as gardeners ready to tend the galaxy they had built. The stars themselves seemed to welcome their children home.